If you're viewing this on the VLE or you're floated by on YouTube, a very warm welcome. My name is Rory Lees-Oakes, and in this presentation we're going to look at the difference between managerial and counselling supervision. The aim of the presentation is to form a supplemental study guide for students undertaking the Level 3 Certificate in Counselling Skills. Counsellors, or those who use counselling skills as part of their work, may find themselves having two differing supervisors. One may be their line manager, the other supervisor is usually external to the organisation. So what is the difference and why have two? Well, let's have a look at managerial supervision. And managerial supervision is usually around the goals of the organisation. So that's your line manager, whoever's managing you, your next, the person above you, I guess. The next step in the organisation above you. So the focus is on the goals of the organisation and where the organisation wants to get to, and I guess how the manager has been instructed to work with the staff to get and attain those goals. Training. Now, training is something that all organisations should do, and usually training can be about anything, not just your counselling or your counselling skills practice, but it could be health and safety, it could be assessment training, equality and diversity training. There's a whole panoply of training that organisations does, and it's not. It can be to do with your counselling practice or your counselling skills practice, but usually if it's managerial, it'll be about, again, attaining the goals of the organisation. It's almost certainly going to be target setting. Every organisation has targets, things that they want to achieve throughout the year, and when you have your meeting with your manager every year, targets are usually set and agreed, and that is part of managerial supervision, and also to make sure those targets are how far you're getting along the road of implementing or achieving those targets. Disciplinary issues. There are times when managers need to go down a disciplinary route with the people that work with them. So managerial supervision can include that. It can involve client load and waiting lists. So if you're working in a practice that has quite a lot of clients and the waiting list, then almost certainly the managerial supervision will focus on how many clients you've got, how long they're likely to be with you, and the waiting list. So counselling supervision is usually different. It's usually done by someone external to the organisation, and we'll look at the reasons for that. As I say, it's external to the organisation, so usually you would either go out to see a supervisor, or occasionally supervisors come in, and that can take the form of either individual supervision or group supervision. So you might find a number of colleagues who are working in the same area come, and you're supervising in a group way, rather like the circle we have in the counselling training, where we also sit in a circle. That can be how it is with external supervision. The supervisor would ask individuals to talk about their work. It allows all issues to be aired, and without putting too fine a point on it, there are things, even with the most enlightened managers, where sometimes a worker will not be comfortable raising certain issues. It could be about the way the organisation's working with clients. It could be about colleagues, where you just need a little bit of independent feedback and use someone as a sounding board about something the colleague's doing, as opposed to going directly to your manager. Of course, if someone's doing something quite unethical, you would go to your line manager, but I think it's useful to be able to have a sounding board. It might be that somebody's struggling. It might be someone who's using counselling or counselling skills, maybe struggling with a client, and they might not feel comfortable about bringing that to their line manager because they may feel that they're not competent, or they may feel embarrassed about it. So it allows all the issues to be aired, and usually in supervision, some of that will be about the organisation and how that impacts on the ability of the counsellor or someone using counselling skills to offer a service. So very important. There's a focus on the client, and while all organisations should be client-led, and client-centred. Counselling supervision really does focus directly on the client work. So the whole thrust of the supervision should be about how you're working with your clients, bringing your clients and talking about how you're working with them, how they're proceeding, how are you having any blockages or difficulties working with the client, and support. It should be support for the practitioner, because occasionally get clients where a practitioner may struggle or may have particular issues working with the clients. So there should be this supportive idea where the supervisor is supportive. There should be a focus on specific training. If you're under counselling supervision, one of the things your supervisor would say to you is, how much do you know about that? That happens quite often in counselling training, where you bring an issue that a client's going through. A good supervisor, a competent supervisor, should be saying to you, how much do you know about this issue the client's got? And if you don't know anything about it, then they should be saying, well, your supervisor should be saying, well, it might be useful for you to try and gain some insight into this area. And there's a whole panoply of things that clients bring. It could be relationships, it could be historic abuse, it could be substance misuse, it could be attachment. There's a huge list of things that clients can bring, and practitioners should have reasonable working knowledge of the issues that clients are bringing to them. It should be confidential, so it comes back to external to the organisation and allows all issues to be aired. By being confidential, there's a sense that the practitioner can be really honest and really bring all the feelings and thoughts to the table, if you like. Obviously, there's limits to confidentiality, and I put a little asterisk next to confidential, unless there's an ethical reason to break confidentiality. So your external counselling supervisor wouldn't particularly go to your organisation unless they had a real concern about you or your practice or the organisation. It might be that they hear something and they think the organisation isn't acting very ethically there, in which case a competent supervisor may very well be trying to garner a little more information before making a decision. So that's the difference between counselling and managerial supervision, and it can be a little bit confusing for learners or people who are just going into the helping professions to see the difference. So I hope that's kind of cleared it up. If you want further information, well, if you're watching on the college's virtual learning environment, if you click the resource tab here, it'll take you to some handouts and a PowerPoint. Or if you're watching on YouTube, if you click on the bar below, I will put a link in to the next video on this channel, which is an introduction to counselling supervision, which will allow you to understand a little bit more about how the supervisory process works in counselling. And finally, thank you for watching.